Hi Reddit, longtime lurker, first time poster here. I am Emily, I am 26 years old, and if I had to sum up my entire childhood into a single phrase, it would be this: the Hunger Games, but with less food and more favoritism. I grew up with an older sister, Claire, who is 2 years older than me and who has, from the moment she was born, been the star of the show. My parents, Linda and Mark, adored her as if she were some kind of chosen one, destined for greatness. It was not just parental pride, it was worship. Every small milestone of hers was celebrated as if she had won a Nobel Prize. When she turned 16, they surprised her with a shiny new Honda Civic parked in the driveway with a giant red bow on top. When I turned 16, my present was a dry, happy birthday, sweetie, a melted leftover Costco cake, and the reminder that they were saving for my college fund. Spoiler alert, there was no college fund. The pattern was the same in everything. Claire always had the best of everything. Every year, she was gifted a brand new iPhone, while I was stuck using a scratched-up flip phone well into high school. When I finally did get an iPhone, it was my mother's hand-me-down iPhone 4, which was already 3 years out of date and barely held a charge. Claire had a credit card at 15, which my parents claimed was for emergencies. In reality, emergencies looked a lot like Starbucks runs, Sephora shopping sprees, and weekly manicures. When I was 15, I had a babysitting job, and my paychecks did not go to mall trips, but toward helping my parents with utilities because we are a team, honey. If something broke in the house, I was the one who fixed it. If chores piled up, I was scrubbing dishes while Claire was out at the mall with her friends. By high school, the differences between us were crystal clear. Claire's closet looked like a trendy boutique, filled with Hollister, Abercrombie, and designer handbags. My wardrobe was Walmart jeans, Target shirts, and sneakers with holes in them that I filled in with a black Sharpie so my classmates would not notice. I once asked my mother why Claire always got the good stuff, and I did not. She gave me this long, drawn-out sigh and said, "Honey, you are just more practical, you do not need all that extra." What she really meant was, you are invisible and she is our star. Fast forward to adulthood, and the favoritism continued. When our grandfather passed away, Claire inherited a trust fund of $200,000. I received nothing. The explanation? My grandfather apparently believed I was independent and capable and would make it on my own just fine. Which, sure, was somewhat true, but it burned like hell watching Claire treat that inheritance like it was Monopoly money. She blew through the entire $200,000 in record time. Designer handbags, vacations to Cabo, and not one but two failed business ventures. The first was a boutique candle shop that burned out financially almost as soon as it opened. The second was a pyramid scheme essential oils business, where she somehow convinced my mother to buy $1,200 worth of lavender oil. Claire also decided to pursue a short-lived career as a DJ under the name DJ Aura Vibes. She spent thousands on professional sound equipment, played at 2 small parties, and then declared that the universe was not vibing with her energy. To top it all off, she financed her ex-husband's motorcycle obsession, only for him to cheat on her, divorce her, and ride off into the sunset with half her wardrobe. Now she is broke, divorced, and living back at my parents' house rent-free, eating their Costco snacks while calling it her healing era. Meanwhile, I was clawing my way toward stability. I worked full-time through college, paid off my student loans, bought a decent used car, and moved into a cozy 2-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend Daniel. We are not rich, but we are stable. I budget, I save, and I plan. I do not set money on fire for manifestation retreats in Palm Springs. Then, last month, Claire called me out of the blue. Her voice was all fake sweet as she said, "Hey, so I need $5,000 to, get back on my feet. You're doing fine, right?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my bowl of microwaved ramen. I told her, sorry, I am fresh out of golden child subsidy checks. Try the bank of consequences. She did not find that funny. She screamed that I was heartless and jealous of her glow-up. Her glow-up, by the way, consisted of a spray tan coupon she could not afford and a knockoff Louis Vuitton bag that she paraded on Instagram. Here is the best part. My parents sided with her. My mother told me, Claire has always had big dreams. You are just more practical. Translation, please fund her chaos so we can keep pretending she is successful. My father muttered something about families supporting each other. Funny, because when I was 14 and needed braces, I was told we could not afford it, while Claire got $600 prom shoes without anyone blinking an eye. So, I did what any petty younger sibling with a lifetime of resentment would do. I sent Claire a Venmo request for $200,000 with a note, reimbursement for 18 years of hand-me-downs, unpaid babysitting, and therapy bills. Within the hour, she blocked me. Now the entire family is calling me selfish and cruel for refusing to help her when I am doing so well. But honestly, watching Claire wave incense sticks over her knockoff purse while chanting about manifesting abundance is the best free entertainment I have had in years. So, Reddit, ATA for refusing to bail out the golden child when she finally ran out of gold? So, Claire tried to guilt-trip me even harder. She literally rolled up at my apartment unannounced on a Friday night, hair half straightened, designer hoodie slung over her arm, and this dramatic aura that screamed, "I am a woman in crisis." Her words, dripping with faux vulnerability, were all about needing a safe place to crash for a few nights while she got back on her feet, but the subtext was clear. She fully intended to move in indefinitely, raid my pantry, and treat my apartment like her personal Airbnb. I had spent years building a little sanctuary for myself and Daniel, a place of order, calm, and modest personal pride. And suddenly it was about to be commandeered by a grown woman who believed rent-free living was a human right if she waived her suffering convincingly enough. I told her straight up that our place was cozy, we did not have room for her luggage, and we certainly did not have room for her drama. Claire did not react with acceptance or understanding. No, she launched into the full performance. Cue crocodile tears. She flopped onto my couch with all the grace of a professional stage actor, curling her body like a crescent moon and letting out dramatic whimpers that could have won awards for over-exaggerated despair. She was whining about how I supposedly owed her because she paved the way for me, as though 18 years of unequal treatment and relentless favoritism had somehow made me morally obligated to bankroll her next disaster. I blinked, trying to process the audacity. Paved the way for what exactly? For working 3 jobs while she spent her teenage years getting pedicures, Starbucks, and boutique jeans for free? Daniel, bless him, peeked around the kitchen corner in his apron, clearly unsure whether he was about to intervene or just become a bystander in the latest episode of Emily vs. Claire, Chaos Edition. He offered her a sandwich with this calm, measured tone that made me stifle a laugh. Claire sniffed dramatically, pushed it aside, and declared she was vegan. Side note, this was literally a peanut butter sandwich, no breadcrumbs, no animal products. She had created a moral crisis out of a completely neutral, harmless snack, as if the peanut butter had personally insulted her. While she sulked by the window like some storm cloud determined to dampen my evening, she launched into a lecture on manifesting wealth and unlocking abundance energy. I watched, slack-jawed, as she pulled out a bundle of sage, waved it meticulously over her knockoff Louis Vuitton purse, and whispered about aligning herself with financial destiny, as though incantations and smoke would refill her empty bank account. Daniel and I exchanged a look that basically said, "Welcome to your Saturday night reality show, starring your older sister's delusions." It was surreal watching her perform this entire ritual with such sincerity, a mix of annoyance, pity, and disbelief flooding me all at once. By the time she finally decided she had sufficiently demonstrated her suffering and exited, leaving behind a faint trail of sage smoke and unresolved tension, I was mentally counting how many months it would take me to recover from the emotional labor of that 20-minute visit. I replayed every facial expression, every dramatic collapse, every tiny nuance of her entitlement, all while secretly feeling a spark of mischief at the absurdity of it. In my head, I started crafting a mental ledger of every ridiculous interaction for potential storytelling fodder, imagining the looks on my friends' faces as I recounted how my older sister tried to spiritually align her finances over a peanut butter sandwich. Despite the emotional exhaustion, part of me could not help but feel a tiny thrill at the sheer audacity of it all. She was the golden child, yes, but even a golden child can be contained, even if only temporarily. I found myself smirking at the thought of my parents hearing about this latest escapade. The thought of them listening to her wax poetic about abundance while I quietly remained unbothered was oddly satisfying. It was like watching a soap opera where you knew all the plot twists in advance and could laugh at the predictability of it. I started imagining what the next family holiday would look like, plotting scenarios in my head with Daniel quietly indulging me from the other room. Every ridiculous habit of hers, from the sage bundles to the knockoff bags, was a ticking time bomb for family entertainment. I could see the moment clearly, Claire, fully convinced that she was radiating good fortune, waving sage over her purse, my parents nodding along because of politeness or guilt, and Daniel and I exchanging a look that spoke volumes about our silent judgment. Even as I put the event behind me, there was a lingering anticipation that refused to fade. I found myself thinking about it during mundane tasks, folding laundry, cooking dinner, walking to the mailbox, and each time, the image of her performing her little ritual made me chuckle. It was ridiculous, it was infuriating, but it was also strangely cathartic to witness her inflated self-importance meet the immovable wall of reality that was my apartment and my boundaries. I could not stop imagining the headlines in my own mind. Claire struggles to manifest financial abundance, while younger sister thrives in practical living. Every sarcastic mental headline made me grin wider. It was the kind of situation that felt simultaneously absurd and deeply satisfying. It reinforced, in a way that nothing else could, just how far I had come, how much I had endured, and how completely her entitlement clashed with my hard-won stability. I kind of hoped she'd show up at Thanksgiving with her sage bundle, just to see how my family would react. Things got even messier after Claire's crash visit. I thought the sage and peanut butter fiasco was the peak of absurdity, but oh no, the universe had more in store. My parents, clearly taking notes from a How to Enable an Adult manual, doubled down hard. Mom called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice saccharine sweet, the kind of tone that sounds like hugs but carries the subtle pressure of a debt collector. She launched into a speech about how if I did not help Claire, she would never get back on her feet. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. I reminded her that Claire had been on her feet since she was 18. It just happened that those feet had always marched straight into Gucci stores, Nordstrom racks, and questionable business ventures she could not afford. I tried reasoning with Mom, asking why Claire could not just get a job. She shot back with the classic golden child defense. Claire was not built for a 9-to-5 and was meant for bigger things. Bigger things. That's one way to describe accruing debt, living rent-free in other people's homes, and hosting manifestation circles in the living room while chanting over knockoff designer bags. For comparison, when I worked 2 jobs through college, pulled all-nighters to complete projects, and babysat every single summer to pay for braces and textbooks, I never once heard I was meant for bigger things. I got a polite pat on the head and a "You're so responsible, Emily." I felt the injustice gnawing at me again. This slow burn of disbelief that my achievements were invisible while Claire's chaos got framed as destiny. Dad, of course, had to add his 2 cents. He muttered something about family supporting each other, the kind of vague moral platitude that sounds wholesome until you realize it exclusively means supporting Claire while everyone else foots the bill. I wanted to say, yeah, as long as it is the golden child being supported by the responsible child, but I kept my mouth shut. I muttered a dry, "Cool, thanks for the pep talk," and hung up. Then the next week, the onslaught began. Claire discovered the digital age and became a full-blown manifestation entrepreneur. Texts started arriving nonstop, each one more ludicrous than the last. She waxed poetic about her visionary business ideas and the abundant wealth we could co-create if I, the practical and skeptical sibling, simply believed in her enough to invest. At first, I ignored it, telling myself that ignoring is a valid form of self-care. But Claire has a creativity streak when it comes to pestering, and she quickly diversified her strategy. Voice notes arrived next, each one featuring her chanting over crystals, reciting affirmations about wealth energy, and occasionally throwing in a dramatic pause for theatrical effect. Screenshots followed, her spending $1,200 on essential oils in one sitting, receipts that she shared like they were badges of honor. She even printed a certified wellness coach certificate at FedEx, snapped a selfie holding it like she had just been knighted, and sent it to me with the implication that I should bow down and invest immediately. I considered blocking her, but honestly, I could not. This was comedy gold. By the end of the week, she escalated further, sliding directly into my DMs. She painted elaborate scenarios of untold wealth and abundance, the kind of "we will manifest luxury while the universe bends to our energy" fantasies that would make even the most gullible Instagram guru raise an eyebrow. She begged me to believe in her, hinting that if I invested, I would become a part of her financial awakening. I screenshot every single exchange, saving them for future therapy sessions or, honestly, just as a visual record of how far entitlement can stretch in the adult world. I kept replaying these interactions in my head, laughing at the absurdity of it all. The combination of her unearned confidence, her spiritualized hustle, and my parents' continued enabling made for a performance so surreal that it almost felt scripted. In my mind, Claire was starring in her own live-action sitcom while I, Daniel, and anyone with half a brain watched from the sidelines, popcorn in hand. Every chant, every aura cleanse, Every unsolicited business pitch was a scene in the ongoing saga of the golden child versus the practical sibling. Even mundane tasks became a stage for her antics. Cooking dinner meant imagining her critiquing my choice of pan while waving sage over a loaf of bread. Doing laundry included counting how many times she might try to manifest abundance through my sock drawer. And walking to the mailbox became a mental rehearsal of how I would dodge another spiritual investment proposal. Each interaction was ridiculous, infuriating, and strangely satisfying. She had elevated self-entitlement to an art form, and I had a front row seat. By Friday, I found myself scrolling through the screenshots again, laughing quietly to myself at the escalating madness. The sheer creativity of her delusions, the relentless persistence, and the absolute lack of self-awareness were almost inspiring. Not in a good way. Not in a I want to be like her way. But in a how can someone be this audacious without blinking way. It was performance art disguised as desperation, and I was the unwilling critic in the best possible sense. Now it is just Tuesday night entertainment. So Claire, apparently undeterred by reality, decided she had the next billion-dollar idea, a wellness coaching startup. And naturally, the first person she thought of roping in as an investor was me, her younger, responsible, gainfully employed sister who actually balances a budget without chanting over sage bundles. She slid into my DMs with a Google Slides presentation that looked like a fever dream made in glitter fonts, stock photos of serene people meditating in sunset fields, and overly enthusiastic arrows pointing at graphs that made no sense. The header screamed, in hot pink Comic Sans, that this was a life-changing opportunity, and she insisted I invest $3,000. I almost choked on my iced coffee as I scrolled through the slides. She explained her vision with full gravitas, overpriced yoga classes in our parents' backyard, supplements she had purchased in bulk from Amazon, and an eventual plan to expand to retreats and online courses. I processed it slowly and realized this basically meant charging our parents' friends and neighbors $50 to do stretches in the garage, while hawking vitamins no one needed. But Claire, of course, had the exact opposite take. The universe was speaking directly through her, and anyone questioning it was supposedly blocking abundance. I laughed so hard, I almost cried. It was peak absurdity. The only thing she was manifesting was debt. She waved her sage over her laptop, muttering something about financial alignment energy, as though the mere act of sprinkling smoke over Microsoft Office could conjure a six-figure revenue stream. Daniel peeked in from the kitchen with a combination of awe and terror, whispering to me that he was pretty sure she might secretly be a cult leader. The chaos didn't stop with me. Claire tried to rope Mom in as a co-signer for her startup, pitching it as a spiritual calling disguised as a business venture. Mom, ever the enabler, almost signed a check before I stormed in and put a definitive halt to the madness. The expression on Claire's face was unforgettable, an exquisite mix of betrayal, horror, and sheer confusion, like someone had just told her her aura didn't come with a warranty. I had the fleeting thought that this might actually be the moment she realized reality existed outside of Instagram captions and inspirational quotes. By midweek, Claire was back to her usual tactics, sending endless texts filled with affirmations, telling me the universe would reward those who believed, and begging me to align my energy with her visionary endeavors. Each notification ping made me grit my teeth in anticipation, then chuckle at the sheer audacity. The screenshots I accumulated over that week became a digital shrine of her delusions, sage emojis, photos of crystals next to her laptop, blurry TikTok videos of her waving incense and smiling earnestly while declaring financial breakthroughs were imminent. Her persistence was exhausting, but it was also a spectacle of unparalleled absurdity. Watching her operate, I felt like an unwilling audience to a one-woman theater production in which entitlement, spiritual bypassing, and ignorance collided with comedic precision. Every plan, every business pitch, every ritualized chant was like a new episode of a show that only existed in real life. Daniel and I would glance at each other and silently mark the moments that would be impossible to explain to anyone else without sounding completely unhinged. Even in the quiet moments, when she was not texting or manifesting abundance over spreadsheets, I could feel the tension of her imagined destiny creeping into our apartment. I would fold laundry and see her sage in my mind's eye floating over my socks. I would pour cereal and imagine her lecturing me on vibrational frequency. Each day brought a new performance, a new act in the ongoing saga of the golden child versus the practical sibling, and I began to accept that this was our life now, surreal, exhausting, and somehow hilarious. By the weekend, the updates had become almost routine. She sent me her client testimonials from friends she had convinced to do a single 20-minute yoga session for $20. There were blurry selfies of people in downward dog, captions about the transformative energy, and unsolicited advice on manifesting abundance that I carefully ignored while screenshotting every ridiculous moment. It was an endless cycle of delusion, entitlement, and faux spiritual entrepreneurship that refused to relent. Honestly, it's like living inside a live episode of Keeping Up with the Chaos. Things got absolutely wild at Thanksgiving this year. I had mentally prepared myself for Claire's usual chaos, but nothing could have prepared me for the level of performance she had cooked up alongside the turkey. As soon as the stuffing hit the table and the cranberry sauce was passed around, she decided the holiday was no longer about family or tradition. It was about her visionary journey. Out of nowhere, she stood up mid-bite, hand placed dramatically on her perfectly manicured chest, and declared how hard it was being the visionary in this family when nobody supported her dreams. Every head in the room turned toward her, and she zeroed in on me with eyes blazing as though I had personally sabotaged her spiritual aura. The room froze. My uncle nearly choked on his beer and snorted, breaking the tension for everyone except Claire, who was still radiating indignation. Aunt Marge leaned over, loud enough for the cousins to catch, and muttered that visions do not pay rent. For once, Claire had no comeback. She scanned the table, muttered something about universal misunderstandings, and slumped into her chair, her ego slightly deflated. There was a brief, almost imperceptible spark of humility in her eyes before she picked up her phone to Instagram her visionary vibes with the pumpkin pie in front of her. Everyone tried to continue the meal, but the energy was irrevocably shifted. The younger cousins whispered and giggled, the adults exchanged knowing looks, and I sat back with a small grin, realizing the universe had delivered a rare moment of comic karma. The rest of the evening proceeded with Claire intermittently narrating her spiritual progress on Instagram, sprinkling sage smoke over mashed potatoes, and insisting that the gravy was blocking her abundance energy. Daniel, ever my anchor, sat quietly beside me, smirking and occasionally muttering a perfectly timed observation under his breath that had me stifling laughter. Fast forward 6 months, and the saga of the golden child has taken a turn toward reality. Claire finally landed a real job at a boutique clothing store. Mom framed it as if she had landed an amazing opportunity in fashion, glowing with pride at her daughter's newly responsible chapter. The reality check: Claire is folding jeans, restocking racks, and scanning items at the register for minimum wage, learning the value of consistent effort and accountability the hard way. It is slow progress, but it is progress, and I find myself honestly proud. For the first time, she is holding a real job for more than 3 weeks, understanding, even in tiny increments, what responsibility actually looks like. She still has not repaid me the thousands I jokingly requested for years of unpaid emotional labor and hand-me-downs. The $200,000 Venmo request I sent? Yeah, still pending, collecting digital dust in the cloud. But that has become irrelevant. The bitterness I used to carry has mostly evaporated. I realized the only person who truly lost in this saga was Claire. She burned through her safety net, alienated people who might have supported her, and now has to rebuild from scratch at 28 years old. Me? I might never have been the golden child, but I built a life anchored in stability, independence, and a sense of humor sharp enough to survive every sage-smudging disaster and chaotic business pitch. I have a loving boyfriend who supports me, a cozy apartment filled with personal pride, and the satisfying knowledge that I avoided getting sucked into a whirlwind of entitlement. Reflecting on the entire experience, I understand now that patience, sarcasm, and firm boundaries are more effective than resentment. The entertainment value of watching Claire attempt to manifest wealth while spiraling financially has been a priceless stress relief mechanism. Every failed manifestation, every ridiculous text, and every dramatic holiday performance became its own form of validation. I survived it all without being dragged into her orbit. For anyone reading this who has been silently cheering from the sidelines through the endless saga of the golden child, thank you. You get it. You have lived through the eye rolls, the sage rituals, the impossible money requests, and the holiday soap operas alongside me. For anyone struggling with a sibling who has always been the favorite, know that resilience, humor, and clear boundaries are your best tools. Reddit signing off. ATA? Nah. I survived the golden child, and honestly, I'm thriving.